Zombie's been around about 10 years. We've specialized in first-person shooters.
Atari approached us about doing a realistic military first-person shooter with a movie bent.
These guys want to make the most cinematic shooter I've ever heard of, and that would be really, really cool.
We've used a lot of Hollywood talent. We use Hollywood script writing, Hollywood voice talent, a real soundtrack, Hollywood storyboarding. It's been a very diverse project.
Complete high production values like a movie.
Overall in the game, it's a fast-paced, grab you by the seat of the pants, popcorn, summer-type game experience.
Things are brought to you in the moment. You might have a plan and it'll change and you have to deal with it. And it's under intense fire and a lot of kind of heavy thinking and just sort of surviving. It's very intense.
In Xbox Live, we're giving you the full meal deal. There's going to be 10 specially designed multiplayer maps, 10 specially designed co-op maps that you can play split screen. And then Xbox Live, you got 5 modes of gameplay.
Red Mercury was influenced by a lot of the big Hollywood blockbuster movies, sort of a really intense pace, but with a really driving story.
We want to make this game as cinematic as possible. So the first thing they did was just write a script as if this was going to be a movie.
We met our writers, Rick and Tog, and talked about what we wanted to do. They immediately grabbed on to this idea of Red Mercury as something completely unique.
We've done 6 movies in the last 18 months. And Mark Long asked us to come in and create a storyline for this game as well as all the cinematics. He had shown us a bunch of stuff on the Red Mercury game, and we were just blown away of how cinematic it looked. It was just gorgeous material, very cinematic.
The Red Mercury story is about dealing with a bomb called Red Mercury,
which is a semi-nuclear device.
And you're sort of chasing it around the globe, trying to make sure it doesn't get set off.
And you're always one step behind it.
From Russia to Casablanca.
From Chechnya to Syria.
Chasing after this terrorist team, trying to save the world, basically.
And not really know what the mission directive is and have to figure things out as you go along.
Red Mercury, I first read about on the internet like 5 years ago.
It actually is based on something real. I'm not sure what.
It's a scary idea. And when we saw the early cinematics, one of the things we saw was the Red Mercury actually go off, and it blows all the planes off of the aircraft carrier's deck. We saw sort of one of the early visuals they had done for that, and I was pretty impressed.
It's a complete hoax. I didn't know it when I first read about it, and then when I found out from other websites, oh, this is just a made-up thing, I thought, this is really cool, man. I'm going to keep this in mind, because this would be a great source for a story.
You could make this into a movie and it would work, in 3 acts perfectly, would work start to finish.
You want to get to the next cinematic where you can engage another interesting character. That really is what, to me, separates the good game from the excellent video game.
There's a sniper in that other wing! Put your shoulder. I'll take a look. Hayden, get upstairs and get in behind that sniper!
Well, for Red Mercury, we spent a lot of time on research. Zombie's well known for doing a lot of in-depth research on their games.
We have a technical advisor on the project who's ex-Green Beret.
I train personnel in various tactics of firearms, unarmed self-defense, counterterrorism measures.
It's really nice to have him there because he knows everything about the military and the way things work, the way they really work.
And so we had phenomenal access to weapons, ranges, and train close quarter combat drills, and see how these teams move and react. Go. Go, go.
Go, go, go!
I also helped the artist with manipulation of the weapons. We took them to the range, they got to fire weapons, see how they worked, and see how they were manipulated in terms of loading.
The artists get a sense of their weight and handling and how to reload and how long it takes to do something.
So that way they could replicate that in the game.
He gives perspective, and that's one thing that's nice to have because you can make small adjustments on all different levels, from the guy who's the grunt down below to a super high-tech gadget.
All those little details, produce a better title.
We also spend a lot of time out in the field recording audio, so we go out there and watch not just so the tactics are done, but also we grab sample audio.
The cinematics were produced in Paris by a company called Attitude Studios.
We have tried to follow the same process than an Hollywood movie.
They took our virtual sets and built actual physical sets, wooden sets, motion captured all the actors in situ around those sets. So when they pick up a cup and put it on the table, it actually sits on the table and all of that.
The motion capture that I participated in were the motions of a person walking in a CQB mode, or close quarter battle, which is a certain way you walk. It's not like running out in infantry mode. The maneuvers for loading the weapons, responding to being shot at, the kneeling positions, basically all the movements of a soldier in various environments.
In the first part, you have the storyboard, which is the explanation of the movie with different pictures. After, you have the mock-up session, when you have your actors and you play the different movements you will use in your cinematic.
They use the game engine to produce the video, and as a result, it matches production values perfectly. Well, you know, I love these kind of games. These are the kind of games I like to play.
What'll make Red Mercury stand out is the fact that we're going for more cinematic and movie style effects. We're trying to keep it so it's a faster paced action movie, kind of like a summer blockbuster.
If you play it with a 5.1 surround sound system and it's on a big screen, I mean, you are in combat. You are in the middle of this war zone, and it's intense.
Our game is about reloading, pulling back.
Rockets going off, there's mortars. We're in trouble. Your team is screaming and yelling at you. Boom. Firing, trying to find cover. We're being attacked. Explosions are going off.
Shooting over your head.
Walls are shaking. You're being ambushed. Your helicopter gets hit and flaming in flames.
Leaning out.
Bullet holes and ricochets going all around you.
Trying to stay alive. You forget that you're playing a game. That's really what our goal is. Just forget that you're in this game and you're trying to give you a greater sense of presence. Red Mercury is it's an internet hoax that I found a couple of years ago, and the story was there's this hyperdense liquid iodine that can be turned into a nuclear weapon, and some South African scientists had got it out, and it was very dangerous, and I just thought it was a great idea, so I just kept that idea and thought if we ever did a game that we needed a super weapon for, this would be cool. And it's got a great name, Red Mercury. It just sounds cool. Our whole angle, I think, on this game is to make something cinematic, which isn't necessarily realistic. You know, some of my favorite action movies are, you know, totally unrealistic. But, you know, there are elements of realism in this genre that are critical. You have to get the uniforms, weapons, equipment, and sound right for the player, because they're very discerning in that regard. But on the other hand, you want to have, you know, big explosions and, you know, wipe out a whole army on your own. You know, that's what's fun about the game. You are Captain Frank Hayden, who's a Delta Force operative, and your team in the beginning of the game is thrown right into the most intense part of the game. You're on a near suicide mission to get into this Syrian coastal town and stop this nuclear weapon from getting away, possibly into Tel Aviv. At the end of the first level, you actually fail, and the nuke goes off. And we fade the screen to black, and it says 72 hours earlier. And so you go back in time and you pick up the story with your team in the African Congo, where you're on a mission to secure a crashed American aircraft. We knew from the beginning that we wanted to do co-op, and we were originally designed only single-player game with multiplayer, but the lead designer really wanted to do co-op, and kind of in a secret project began to work on the co-op levels, and then just sprung it on us one day. And we were like, wow, dude, this is so cool that you did this. And so he was able to design with the other level designers 10 unique co-op maps. And I think that's great. It gives the game even more replayability. There's a mode I should mention in the game that we call Delta Force, and you can play the entire game single player with one life. And it may sound ridiculous, but when you play that way, it is a whole new way of playing. And if you're in, you've got 15 hours invested in a game, you're going to be a lot more careful about what you do next and how you manage your ammo and everything. And it takes the game to another level. We improved the Unreal AI with a bunch of extensions that allow us to create something we call combat nodes. And that's in the level design. There's places that you naturally would take cover. And the enemy and your team will vie for those positions. If you take a certain combat node, then your teammates will take up nodes that support you. If you just sit there and do nothing, the enemy will close on you, leapfrogging from position to position, covering each other as they fire, and put pressure on you to finally get within grenade range, and then they'll attack you from grenade range. And so it makes the game has got a pretty intense, emergent capability. Although it's heavily scripted because of the AI and these combat nodes, you could find yourself trying to come to an optimal way to play the game. And the game has, for me, a surprising amount of replayability. I mean, we've been working on the thing for 2 years, and the first level of the game, the demo that you'll play in Xbox Magazine, is actually so much fun that I never get tired of playing it. It's just, you can play it so many different ways.